Laugh Cry Club. I'm Joy.
I'm Rebecca.
Hello, everybody. And we are here as licensed therapists in your ears to make you feel better. You know what? We might not accomplish that task every time, but we hope that you leave every episode feeling like you have some piece of information to go about your day, just feeling maybe a little more equipped to handle whatever comes back at you. Because I think sometimes we get into this false idea that we should always strive to start feeling better, and that's not always the point.
Yeah, I think, if you don't feel better or you don't walk away with some nugget of knowledge, walk away with knowing that even mental health professionals feel probably just like you feel as well. We're just human beings,
everyone's
right?
just going through this human experience, and really
we're
at
all
the end
just
of the day,
trying
we're
our
just
best.
trying to understand how we do it better. I'm becoming better about oh, this is how I handle anger, or oh, this is how I handle sadness, or oh, so it's not like this. I was listening recently to this podcast called the Dharma Lab, which is really great. Highly recommend it. I'll link it in the show notes. That talks so much about neuroscience, and I am, ever since starting my mindfulness class, I'm so nerding out on neuroscience and how
it's so fun.
It's so fun and so cool because it's science, and it's you can't argue with this. This is actual data showing that this works. Anyway, so it's talking so much about how the resistance is what makes us unhappy. Meaning, if I'm feeling anxious, then I all of a sudden become frustrated that I'm anxious. And that resistance is what really is the problem. The anxiety is not the problem. The anxiety is there because we're having this, we've talked about millions of times before, where we are built for danger. We're wired to be ready for whatever is attacking us. That is actually a really good thing, but it's then our reaction to be why am I anxious? Blah. And then the resistance to these negative emotions is really what starts the snowball. So I'm digging into more of that. So anyway, my whole point of introing with that is that I think a lot of us, myself included, feel a pressure to feel good all the time. And if we can release that and instead look at it as I'm going to try to better understand emotions, I'm going to try to better understand moving about my day, I wonder if that would give us a little bit, a little bit of an ease. Not to make you feel better, but...
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's kind of along the lines of something I've been thinking about too. It's I want to feel better.
We all do.
It's like a drug, right?
We all do.
We all want it.
We all want to feel better.
It's that's why we drink caffeine.
That's why we're
do drugs or
totally
eat sweets, because we're ooh, it lights up the brain of all the feel good stuff. And it's I get caught in this trap, and I'm going to start unpacking this with my personal trainer, who I'm going to have as my coach, that I'm getting caught in these traps of where it's if something, I don't know, you don't track a macro or the scale goes up. I hate the scale, but it's part of my life. Okay. And
you're talking about weighing yourself scale, not a
and if it goes
scale,
up, you I have that too. But I'm talking about weighing. It's I went to the doctor's office to do some blood work. It's afternoon. Of course, you've eaten. All your clothes are on.
Yeah, I've got the heaviest
and
shoes
you're
in the winter, and they're step on the scale, and I'm but my shoes weigh 10 pounds.
No, I can't. I need to be absolutely naked first thing in the morning
after I peed. Because that
exactly.
1 ounce of drops of pee is going to be, make a difference.
Exactly. But isn't it it's so fucked how we mess with our brains. But then I get on this spiral of oh my God. And then it's that spiral is terrible for because what our central nervous system, it dysregulates you. You really just need to calm the fuck down and relax about it and recognize everything fluctuates. It doesn't mean... It's I go to all or nothing thinking very quick, which is a distorted thought. And then it's then I've just revved up my whole fight or flight, which is then the body is oh shit, something major and terrible is happening here. We need to actually retain water. We need to make sure we're shutting down certain systems, and we need to hold on to fat because we don't know what's going on. And it's so as I end up doing the opposite of what I need to be doing, which is probably this course you're taking about mindfulness, is if I could just settle in and be mindful and not react, I would probably see more results.
You would. I think everyone needs to take this
yes.
class. I'm such a fan.
I'm going to take it. I'm going to get the info from you.
Anyone, I'll also link it. It's through Brown University. Anyone can sign up for it. It costs a little bit of money. It's not free.
Let's all take it.
But I'm going to take another one after this because I'm just so like deep. It has just been so effective in how I approach life. Meaning like you can take any sort of class and you kind of like forget or you like retain a few things, but this class truly is like life changing. Not to be like overly dramatic about it, but back to what you were saying is like, Rebecca, so you're taking the situation and you're making a meaning out of it. And my professor for this mindfulness class often says, we are meaning-making machines. Our brains are meaning-making machines.
So true.
So you are taking this information and you're putting a meaning on it. And that's just something to notice. Again, these are not things to say that's good or bad. The whole thing about mindfulness is just to be like, oh, interesting that I do that. Okay, that's there.
Yeah.
Not to jump to any fixing, not to jump to any judgment, not to jump to anything like, okay, now what do I do? It's just noticing. And that is like equal parts cool, but also frustrating because you're like, but how do I fix it? Because we want to fix. We want to immediately jump to fixing. So that is like the cool part of this whole process is, and we really didn't mean to like jump right into like all this mindfulness stuff, but it's just been so top of mind for me, but that I'm like, this is so important. And you gave the perfect example of this benign situation. It's a fairly neutral situation of weighing yourself. But then what we do is immediately slap a meaning on it that equals this.
Yep.
For you
and
to go.
You were able to put words to that for me. And that's something I feel like that's going to be my new thing that I'm going to really be focusing on. And I really want to take this course and I probably should stop attaching meaning to these things that like, or like, I'll be like, I'm guilty of this. And I'll be like, I feel so fat today. And, my spouse is like, fat is not a feeling. And why are we reacting to maybe you're holding water today? And it's like, you look the same you did yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really important to process those things. Like, this, like either with a therapist or with you, just something to really sit with for yourself. Cause this is not about fixing. It's not about reversing. It's not about being like, something's wrong with me. It's just about, oh, I do this. And that's a perfect example of like, these negative thoughts that come in are there. And if you can just recognize that, notice that, but the reaction, like the next step of the reaction is really where we screw ourselves. Because the next step is then, I'm so fat, I'm so whatever, I need to run more or whatever it is. Like, and that's like those next steps is where we're like, okay, but let's just hold off for a second. And can we just like sit with this emotion and explore it and watch it and not attach ourselves to any outcome? And I'm really simplifying it here. There's so much more to this, but, and it is, I got to be honest, it is not easy. I mean, for someone like, we talked a little bit about recently where I've never thought I'd be someone who was like, oh, I meditate or do mindfulness, because it really is not easy for a lot of us, like with those busy minds. But once you start doing it and you realize how helpful it really is, and you start to see the returns, like the positive returns, you're like, you start to crave it a little more. You're like, okay, it's challenging, but I can do this and I'm going to try it again. And so I'll give you an example too of like something that came up this past weekend, because I had to do a whole day retreat. Like part of this class is doing an entire day of mindfulness with like 100 other people from around the world that are in these classes. So it was a Zoom call with 100+ people with about 4 professors who teach all of these mindfulness classes. And, oh, by the way, before I forget, I was opening my phone and I was like, oh, I was looking something up. There's an app that you can download that is through a lot of it's like not the exact professors, but a lot of the same like neuroscientists that influence this type of work. The app is called Healthy Minds. And this is kind of along the same research data around how to be more mindful. And they have really good. I haven't done the whole process yet because I just found out about it. But my professor was the one who recommended Healthy Minds and also the Dharma
Oh,
Lab.
cool.
So that's kind of like what I'm digging into
Oh.
now. And it's like constant practice. But anyway, so we're in this all day retreat. It starts at 7 a.m. my time. And I really can't complain because the people from all over the world, there's some people taking this at like 11 p.m. at night where I'd be like passed out sleeping if they're asking me to
Yeah.
be mindful. So throughout the day, we're literally doing 8 hours of mindfulness. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So we get throughout the day and we have like a couple breaks, but like really no formal breaks. It's not like they're like, okay, let's take a lunch break. We'll see you in an hour. Like when you take lunch, you bring your lunch to sit in front of the screen and you eat mindfully. And it's not like they're
Cool.
it's not like they're watching you, but
Yeah.
they're just like, we encourage you to sit and eat mindfully during your lunch break. And so you do that and you're really kind of held accountable to not check your email, not do anything on your phone, whatever. So we get throughout the retreat and then I have my next class on Tuesday. So this week, we have our normal Tuesday morning class and we're sitting in class, we're processing the retreat and my professor's like, I want to talk a little bit about your experience and who had a good experience or who really struggled with it and said, nope, that's not for me. I'm never doing that again. And a lot of people spoke up and were like, that was really hard for me. I never want to do that again. That was just not my thing. And
Interesting.
it was so freeing because the professor's very much like, respect whatever you need, Because my brain, and I chimed in and I told her this, I said, thank you for saying that your experience is your experience. There is no right or wrong. Because my brain, this is where my meaning maker came in. My brain went to, I had a hard time with it and I struggled with it. I'm going to do it again so I can be better at it.
I knew that's what you're going to say. Because you're like, I'm going to level this up.
I'm going to win the warm up.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to win.
I'm going to win it. Because you're like, yes.
So my meaning maker was like, I didn't feel like super great at that. I don't think I got an A. So like, I'm going to do it again. Even though I don't really want to do it again,
I'll try harder.
I'm going to try harder. I'm going to try to mindful harder. And
oh my
isn't
gosh,
that
Joy,
funny?
I love this. It's so funny, but it's true. I mean, it just shows like how different we all are. Like I'm kind of competitive by nature too. And it's like, I want to be the best at it,
Yeah,
or
it's the striver that's just like, that's
it's fun.
what shows
Like,
up.
give me the A, give me the
Yeah.
A, the gold star.
And this is
yeah.
very parallel to a type of therapy called parts, like family systems and parts work, where you have like parts of you that show up. So for me, it's like that is a striver that's like, I'm going to win. I'm going to, so that showed up. And it was such a freeing conversation because the instructor, again, was like, if you never want to do that again, you are no better or worse than anyone else. Because there was a girl who was like, I hated every minute of it. I never want to do that again. I will never do it again. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, that's so interesting. Because and she had no shame about it. She was just like, not for me, gross, ick. That was hard. And then there's
Yeah.
me who's like, I want to try it again. Even though I kind of
Let's do
hated it,
again.
I want to do better. I want to mindful harder. I want to be the best mindful person ever.
I love it. I love it. And I would think I personally would struggle doing it like at my home. Like almost would do better. I've done like a silent day retreat before, but I was out somewhere in nature at they had these cool buildings that they like built out of mud and there's no like corners. It was all smooth and like, they recycled windows from old buildings and it was just really cool. And it was like, I can hang out here, but in my house, that might be a challenge.
Yeah, and I had to tell my partner, I had to tell Scott, and like, you're taking care of the dogs today. I cannot and there was like a couple moments where you can like break out and help if you need to, but I had to shut the door. I had to just be like, I don't exist today. Like, don't bother me. But
Don't talk to me.
But it was hard, but that's also like, it was equally a cool challenge because let me tell you, I really wanted to like just because you have to have your camera on. They highly encourage you put your camera on for that same reason. It like encourages you. And I never in my life, like anytime, and I work for a company where we do a lot of mindfulness stuff, but almost every single time we do a meditation, everyone turns their camera off. And now it has taught
They
me.
do. We don't want people looking at us, right? But if you're all meditating, nobody should be looking at you, right?
Well, that's the other thing is I'm like, I bet you there's a lot of people here who just turn it off and like multitask while the mindfulness stuff is going on. So like that camera holds me accountable to not do that. And that's so I keep my camera on. Everyone had their camera on the whole time. So anyway, it's just, and we do a lot of mindful movement where you stand and you're almost like doing yoga in front of the camera and like just, so all of that to say is it is, if you're interested in it, there's plenty of ways to learn about this stuff for free too. You know, you don't have to take this whole class that costs money, but you know, in our profession, continuing education is something we always have to do anyway. So it's a great way to kind of knock that out. But it has definitely brought me to a place of understanding and how I interact with life in a way that I'm like, wow, this really could, you know, I'm not trying to put like the stamp of like, this is the answer to everything, but it's just so helpful. It's so helpful at this time in our lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me to come out of that, to be like, I'm so proud that I did that. I never thought I could do it. I never thought I'd consider myself a mindful person, but also the judgment around what a mindful person looks like. Cause I'm like, I still have a scattered brain. I still have moments where I'm like, this is really hard for me, but it doesn't have to be. I always envision it of like the person who's like always chill and always like so mindful of everything and always like so grounded. I'm like, that's not what that's.
And they talk just like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah, it's well, because that's like us putting meaning on things again, right? And our judgments.
It's the meaning maker. Yeah. So
I love that, the meaning maker.
We are meaning making machines.
Well, I feel so inspired by you, Joy, and I love that you are taking this class and sharing it with us because I think it's really helpful. And these just reminds us to be kind to ourselves and our mind. And it's like, it's so hard. And hearing you talk about that, it's not easy, but that you were able to do it, that gives me some hope and inspiration that I could probably do it too, even though I feel very scattered.
Absolutely can, because the beauty of it is that no matter what happens, like the act of doing a mindfulness practice and your brain wandering off is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Our brains are going to wander. That is what our brains do. I don't know one person, unless you live this 24/7 in like a monastery, you will wander and you will come back and you will wander and you will come back. You know what I mean? So it's like that normalization of how the brain works is really what has sunk my teeth into this. Cause I think what I've said before is doing any type of meditation. I was like, you just feel like you're doing it wrong. And so understanding the step before that to be like, no, this is what your brain's going to do. So having that understanding makes it, I don't want to say easier, but just makes it a little bit more like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I get it. So people like us who want to quote unquote do it right, you're like, oh, I am doing this thing. So anyway, so always open to talking more about this as I continue to learn more. But pivoting to our conversation today, we thought there's so much going on in the world and there's so much, I think, disappointment around every corner, but we thought we would talk a little bit today about, why disappointment hurts so much, and especially when people disappoint you and how to handle it without like really letting it take you down and how we process that emotion.
Yeah, I feel like I'm so happy. I'm kind of excited to talk about this topic because, like you were saying, disappointment seems to be everywhere. But people have just continuously been disappointing me. And then part of me is like, well, I need to check my expectations. Maybe I'm expecting too much. But then it's like, I'm just expecting like common decency. And especially I think when you have friendships with people or people close to your life, like, it's okay to have a certain expectation. It's like, so, Joy and I here, I consider Joy a friend. And I don't feel like I have high expectations of Joy, but I do. I think when you're friends, you like have this idea, like if there's like give and a take, just like in a partnership that you're a romantic partnership of like, Joy might go through a hard time and I might be like reaching out to Joy more, like checking in. Hey, are you okay? Because you matter to me. And then knowing like when you're going through it, you're probably not going to be reaching out to me that much. And that's okay. Like, I understand that. But I feel like, so I have to correct my thoughts and like, oh, you should lower your expectations. But it's like, no, I think it's okay to have certain expectations of people because you just want, I think people want to be treated like they treat other people for most of the time, right?
It's almost like this contract of walking into a friendship to think we're always attracted to people for whatever reason. Of like, you and I click for millions of reasons, but like when you meet someone, you're like, wow, I really connect with this person. So you enter into this kind of like unspoken contract that in your mind you've made up that this person is a good person to know and you want this person in your circle. Now we all have, I think, different expectations, or at least like there's plenty of people out there that I hate this phrase, but it's used a lot as like, I have a bad picker. Like you either pick bad friendships that like don't treat you well or like relationships that don't treat you well. I think that just more has to do with like what expectations you have for yourself of like how you treat yourself and how you think you should be treated. And so that's different for everybody, right? But like overall, I think everyone can like show up into a relationship and be like, okay, I think I have a good idea of who Rebecca is, for example. And so far, it's like the marble thing with Brene Brown. Like every time you have like an action of a friend, and like relatively speaking, you and I, gosh, we've been friends for like 5 years, but it feels like forever. But I'm like, that's actually fair.
I feel like we were on a sports team together sometime in college.
Like we were like oh my gosh, what's the word? I can't even think of the word. We were like teammates. That's the word I'm looking for.
Teammates.
Yep. Brain went offline in like another life. But 5 years to me is like, that doesn't feel like that long, but it kind of feels long because I have developed a relationship with you where it's like the marble jar of you have not, and hopefully vice versa, like within reason. I don't think anyone's perfect, but like for the most part, the marble jar has been filled up to like these little micro instances of feeling like, yeah, that person's trustworthy. Yeah, and it's not like we're constantly counting every day, but you have internally built up enough trust with this person that you're like, oh, that feels good. Yeah, I can totally trust this person with really anything. Like I could ask them for something. I could rely on them. I can tell them things. I can confide in them and trust them. So I think like we enter into these unspoken contracts with people. And so then it's like, what happens when all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from underneath you? Because that's happened plenty of times in my life. Now, I'm not saying it's like, every single person I meet, but it's enough to where you're like, wow, that like really hurt. And yeah, go ahead.
Or like, I think the marble jar, like the marble jar cracks.
Yeah.
So the marbles start spilling out and you're like, I think you're kind of left with WTF is happening here. Like, I think it sends your brain is like trying to process. It's just, what is happening? Because that you're right. There was a contract. There was marbles of trust through the years, and now they're spilling out, and you don't know what to do with it. And it's so confusing.
Yeah. So can I use I'll use two really quick examples. Like one was, and this is so funny because let's talk about like the expectations we have. In my life, my expectation has always been like, I'm friends with this person and we're going to be good. And like, who really betrays you? Like I pick good people in my life. You know what I mean? Like that was like the naive part of me, that you bring people in and you never really let them go, because for the most part in my life, I had like pretty great friendships, but I also was very much a people pleaser because I had if I kind of whittle it down to me feeling like, this has so much to do with being like a Catholic in a Mormon town where you're feeling like the odd one out. So you felt like you had to morph into someone that you maybe weren't because you just wanted friends. So that was there. But so once I was in, I was like, oh, I'm not letting these people go. So, throughout my life, I had people who I would say truly betrayed me, where for one example, I had a friend in my 20s who just all of a sudden decided that something I did, which was like so silly. Like, I think I was at a party once and she thought I was like looking at her in like wrong, or that I wasn't having enough fun. And then all of a sudden said, you're not a good person. I don't want to be friends with you. Like that to me made no sense. And I
Right.
tried so hard to be like, I don't know what I did. And then it was so disappointing because I was really good friends with this person. And then I had to then realize, very disappointed, very sad, like mourned it. And then I had to realize, oh, this isn't about me. But that's a hard thing to also come to because you want to take, if you're
Yeah.
a good person, you want to take responsibility for your actions. You want to be able to talk it out.
Yes.
And we weren't able to talk it out because we were on two different pages. Like personally, I don't think I did anything wrong. Like, I feel like maybe if anything, I was like, I just need to understand more of like what you need from me. And at the end of the day, we had to like part, and we tried a couple times to be friends again, but she did the same exact thing. So at the end of the day, I was like, oh, I just like, we weren't a fit anymore. And that's kind of maybe what it came down to, instead of
Yeah.
like, but it was disappointing. And the other one,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, tell us the other
The
one.
other one was this was like more recent, is when I was working at Kaiser. I had really good friends there, and two of them horribly stabbed me in the back, where I thought we were good friends, we were supportive of one another, and like to a point where they edged me out and kicked me out of a job, stabbed me in the back. Like there's no two sides to this here. I was
Right.
literally effed over in a way that I was like, it still makes my stomach hurt when I think about it. It's like very traumatic to me because it was not, they made me feel like someone I was not. They made me feel like I was this bad kid. I felt like a criminal behavior. Like I literally was like walked out of the building because they just like, because I was crying over what happened. So then they also,
Oh my
then they
gosh.
gaslit me to be like, you shouldn't be crying. And like everyone's, you're causing a stir because you're upset over this. So I was like, oh, okay, so you basically stabbed me in the back and then said, you shouldn't be crying. So we're going to escort you out and you can't be back on the building. Like it was just like insult after insult after insult to injury. And that was so disappointing because it'd be different if it was like some horrible, well, there was another horrible boss that was involved in this, but they weren't the actual person making the decision. It was these two good friends, or who I thought were good friends. And when I say good friends, we texted every day. We hung out outside of work. We would meet for coffee. We'd go to lunch all the time. Like we were what I would consider good friends.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And
That's so sad.
just like that, just stabbed in the back and rug pulled out from underneath you. I was so devastated. I was grieving. I was disappointed. And I still can't make sense of it. And this is the hard part, is there is no resolve all the time.
That's true.
But the disappointment, I had to process that. But it's like, it's kind of about this, like, let's call it what it is too. Like it really affected my mental health for a while. So I think if people are thinking about these instances in their life of like, what did I do? We may never know what I did. I wish to this day they would contact me and process it with me. That's another thing where I'm like, that's on you, because you
yeah.
never gave me a resolution of why you did this. And you never took accountability, because I think on some level, I think they know what they did was really, really shitty, but they're just moving on their merry way, making tons of money at Kaiser because they got elevated to, so life isn't fair, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. But
It looks like they're having a great time, but I do believe in karma.
I do
and
too. I do too.
It's coming, it will come around, or it may have already been weaseling out too, for sure. But I think you mentioned, when you're talking about gaslighting, that's a portion of, when we have relationships with people and then we have this disappointment, that oftentimes there is somebody then that starts gaslighting us. Like, in order to be like, let me smooth this over for you and make you feel
Yes,
better about this
yes.
separation or end of a friendship. And it's like, that adds to this confusion too, because your brain is just like trying to make sense of it. I think of it almost as like, you're a pilot in a plane that you don't really know how to fly, and all of a sudden the whole board is lit up, bells and things are going off, and you're like, holy shit, we're getting ready to crash. How do we fix this? Like, that's how I relate to what it feels like in these situations where you've built this trust up with people and then they just let you down, and then they start gaslighting you. It's like,
well, and
so terrible.
It's so terrible. And it's also so confusing, because then it makes us question, it makes us feel crazy, because I'm like, okay, up to this point, I thought you were a cool person. I thought you were awesome. Like, I would consider you one of my
Right.
good friends. And then you feel kind of nutty because you're like, was I just like, what did I miss? You know?
Yes.
So
Yeah. And then sometimes you can't check in because your immediate is like, I want to talk to somebody, be like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
because I need somebody to tell me.
exactly. And you know what? This is a horrible thing to say, but it is kind of true. It's like, I also have to tell myself crazy people make you feel crazy.
That I like that. That is true.
So
remember that, people.
Crazy people make you feel crazy. And I'm not trying to
That's
like,
your takeaway from
right.
today.
That's your one takeaway. But it's I think what it comes down to, and again, every situation is so different, but you know, for those examples I just talked about, is like all of a sudden things are like moving along, and then when the rug is pulled out, you're like questioning your own decision, you're questioning your reality, you're questioning like how did I not notice this? Where could I have prevented this from happening? And the fact is, we can't predict this stuff. And we do the best we can with these relationships to be checking in, to, you know, have honest conversations. But we, at the end of the day, we cannot control other people's behaviors, and we will never know what's inside the minds
Right.
of other people. So like, if you're looking at family members, if you're looking at, you know, even just the State of the Union right now, like, you know, I even watched the actual State of the Union, and it was like, we're just being manipulated left and right here. We're going to talk about that on a future episode as far as like,
yeah.
you know, social manipulation. But, you know, in terms of other people, we just can't control it. We may not understand it, and we may not have any resolution. And at the end of the day, if we can look at ourselves and be like, I did the best I could, or yeah, maybe I could have done this differently, but it is not something we can always control or prevent. And I think that's the hard part, is like, we want to kind of go back in time and be like, well, how could I have prevented this? Where could I have noticed this sooner? Whether with like a romantic relationship, if
Right.
someone all of a sudden breaks up with you, or like cheats on you, or whatever, it's like,
That goes back to us trying to keep ourselves safe,
Yeah.
right? Like the whole fight or flight, like, because it becomes a threat to us. And it's like, I need to understand this threat so it doesn't happen again, because we're all trying to not feel pain. But it's, you know, these situations when these things happen really end up affecting our mental health, and it leads to like rumination, a lot of self-doubt. You like that whole like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Like you start to doubt yourself. Am I stupid for trusting
Right,
this person?
right.
And then we can go into like emotional withdrawal, and the resentment starts to build.
totally.
Like,
oh, I was resentful
like-
for a long
Yeah.
time. I still am, like
Yeah.
if I think about it, but it's like less and less. But man, I was pissed. Like, and the overgeneralizing is another
yeah.
thing where, like, I think people do that a lot. Is like, oh, people always let me down. Like, that's something we need to be careful of, because it is, sure, it's something to develop a self-awareness to be like, maybe I do ignore warning signs. Maybe I do ignore red flags. But it's also fine to learn lessons. And like, for example, the girl I was talking about, like in my 20s, who just was all of a sudden decided that I wasn't a good friend for who knows why. Like 10 years later, I tried again with her. I tried to like spark up another friendship with her. I was like, I really miss her. She was really fun. We had so much in common. Like,
yeah.
and so I tried again. And then she just did the same thing again. And I was like,
It's interesting. You
I
tried.
tried.
It wasn't her trying.
no. Isn't that
So
interesting?
there was something still about there. It doesn't surprise me though, because I know you.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something about that relationship that you were really missing.
Yep.
And it was like, I miss this. But also probably part of your brain was like, I want to understand what happened. Like,
Kind of,
and it's like, maybe I
yeah,
can
or maybe,
understand
like,
it and
we're
we can
older
come to a
now.
conclusion.
Yeah, like maybe we're
Yeah.
older now, and maybe we can just put that behind us.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I could go back and try to understand why. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, it really was very simple. Of like, I just missed her. I really liked her, and I had a couple of friends warn me. They were like, "I'm just letting you know, like, be careful with her." And
That's what's hard too, is like when you really miss that person, right? When the marble jar is cracked, all the trust and all the trust and see that's been built up is spilled out everywhere, and then you're like, I really miss how beautiful that jar was and all the
Yeah.
colors, and it was so fun,
Yeah.
and I want that back.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what people do in romantic relationships, where when it's over, then they
Yes.
romanticize the fun times. And
Yeah.
we ignore the red flags. And that's okay. Look, no one's perfect. We're not looking for like we're not looking to preserve ourselves to have this never happen again. We're just talking about this in a way of like when it happens, because it will, because people will disappoint you. We are human beings. We are flawed. We will get into relationships that will really break our hearts. And how can we deal with this in a way that's like, okay, for me, for that relationship, I went back to it thinking like, okay, maybe it's different. We're more mature now. And it wasn't. And I was like, okay, lesson learned. Don't do that again. And to quote, is it Maya Angelou? That's like, when people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them the first time. And I think there's so there's been relationships along the way in my life where the red flags go up, and I rarely am I wrong. Rarely are my red flags wrong. Do I ignore them sometimes? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't it interesting too, though? Like when we have these relationships where people disappoint us, and then it just kind of falls apart, and we're no longer friends or in a relationship with the people, that we start to think about the red flags start to come up for us, and we're like, oh, there was this, and this, and it's like, because you're trying to understand like what the demise of this relationship, like what tore it down when it felt so good and wonderful. And in some ways, then I think it's us. So I think of a red flag as sometimes us trying to figure it out of like what we don't want to do. And so we often talk about red flags as like in a healthy way, like look for them. But sometimes I also feel like we put the meaning maker again, Joy. We put meaning, and so we're like, that's a red flag. I need to look for in the future. We identify a red flag based on patterns from the past. We're like, oh, this person has these same things that I totally didn't notice. And so it helps us make sense of the relationship. I don't know that if I was doing the relationship again that I would have noticed them. I probably would still have the relationship or friendship with the person. Mm-hmm. But it's so interesting. Like after the fact, we're like, oh, there were so many red flags, and like I missed them.
You missed them, yeah. And it's like hindsight really is 20/20. We can always go back and do that, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up for it. But it's information to kind of put in our back pocket for the future of like, okay, so when red flags come up, I will recognize that. I will take note of that. And I really, again, with that relationship specifically, I was just really hoping that it would change. I was like really hoping that it would be different this time, and that maybe that was just like us being young and stupid. So, I mean, I also want to bring up a point about families, where I think we could go on a different tangent around how this comes up in family relationships, because, you know, for myself, I've seen a lot, and I think it's so different. Like when you're a kid and you're just innocent, and you like trust all the adults in your life. But then as you get older, you see some dynamics that you're like, wow, I never realized that was like that. And that's really disappointing. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to process as I get older, because I'm seeing things and understanding things differently. And, you know, where people either showed up or didn't show up, or like where they are now and how they're handling things now. And I think it's just so much harder like when you have like those blood ties, or that you have like those family relationship ties, no matter what you call family, if you have like those family ties. But I think about people who maybe have like a difficult relationship with maybe a parent or a guardian, where you're like, you know, how do you move through that? Like I have a couple acquaintances that I know that are just like, they still want to have a relationship with them, because they're like, but at the end of the day, I can't like totally cut it off. But the relationship isn't great, and it is like constantly hurting them. So like these disappointments sometimes we have to, not to quote the mindfulness stuff again, but you kind of have like to dance with it in a way that's like, all right, how am I not going to get completely clobbered and like my toes stepped on every time I try to like interact with this that's a little bit protective, but also it's still there, because cutting off the relationship completely would be worse than dealing with a little bit of disappointment.
I want to say too that I know sometimes people talk or think about like the cutting of a relationship, like that's so final. It means two pieces of string and you can't attach them. It doesn't feel like you can attach them back. So it doesn't have to be cutting it off. It can just be a natural ending. And sometimes I think you don't even have to be the one that cuts it off. It's like somebody else's behavior is what creates the problem. And your wise mind has decided this is so unhealthy. I choose not to participate in this anymore. And sometimes what you find out is that relationship only continued because you were choosing to participate too by trying to keep it going. And it's like you realize that keeping it going was just so unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I can use myself as example. I've had a falling out with my mother, and I have not spoken to her since Thanksgiving. And I'm really okay. It wasn't necessarily my choice, but it was a behavior. It was like a culmination of behaviors, and then it happened. And the world was just a really hard time anyway at this moment. And I'm like, whoa, I don't have any more space to handle this. Like, what's going on over there? So I feel like the choice was made for me in a way, but I accepted it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
yeah,
this is, I don't feel like it was cut. I feel like I feel very at peace. Like it's kind of like that's energy is there. I'm protecting my own peace. And that's what's helped get me through it instead of looking at like, scissors.
Yeah. But that's also really hard because, you made that choice to protect you and to protect your energy. And I think sometimes it's hard for us not to take it personal, to be like, how could you do this to me? Does that mean you don't love me? And that like whole rejection, like all of that starts to come up too. And also realizing that as much as we want to so bad, we cannot change anyone. You can't make anyone do something. You cannot change their behavior. You can't tell, no, it reminds me of this book I read ages ago that talked about like getting into a romantic relationship with someone, like more specifically someone that you might marry if you choose to get married, right? Like they said it shouldn't be till death do us part. It should be, I like you pretty good. Let's see how this goes.
I love that. This whole death to us part, like one person cannot be your whole thing forever, right?
Yeah,
We're
and it's like, and I love that because it really is this like ease of to think that you have control over or prediction that like you're going to be the same person forever and ever. Sure, sometimes that happens, but it's like you either grow together or you grow apart. And to think that you have that prediction, that crystal ball the day you get married, like, look, I'm not trying to freak people out, but it's just real. Like, you don't know where you're going to be in 40 years or like, God willing, you like, if you want to stay together, great. But I just don't think we should be putting all that pressure. So it's kind of the same thing with like any relationship you go into is like, we like you pretty good. Let's see how this goes. Because the expectation, kind of circling this back to the beginning, is like the expectation that we go into of this unspoken contract. Why don't we go ahead and look at that first? What expectation are we going into this contract with? Are you looking at this to be like, this person better never hurt me? I'm just, it's kind of like, all right, let's reverse it. Let's flip it and reverse it.
Yeah.
Because
I love that. I don't think that maybe we always go in with the expectation like this person's not going to hurt me. I think it's like when we have these friendships, it's that, and it's so good and it feels so connected, like a puzzle piece almost. And when you are disappointed by a behavior or you get totally dropped off from a friendship, essentially, and gaslit about it, I think it just leads you to just questioning everything, and that you, in some ways, I don't think the expectations were maybe too high because you're just expecting this person to be what you consider to be a friend, which I think most people would be able to identify like key things they want in friendships. But people just sometimes can't fulfill the social contract that's unwritten, and they let you down, they disappoint you, and then they gaslight you, and that it happens.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're a bad person. I don't even want to say it's because the other person's a bad person. It's just something disconnected, and there was no honesty. Because if people are really honest and transparent, there's always a way to have a conversation about something and to say that this is what I'm thinking about. I want to throw it by you. This is how I'm feeling. Can we talk it through? Because our friendship matters. And I just want to have the conversation. I think that's being honest with people. And that means like you could probably repair or continue to work on the friendship and continue to go forward then.
Yeah.
It's the gaslighting, because I feel like that leads to dishonesty. It's like people aren't being honest in how they end friendships sometimes. Like your friend that you're talking about, like, we don't really know why. I don't know if she said because you weren't having a good time at a party.
But then the second time,
like, which is lame.
It was so. Trust me,
that's about her because she couldn't handle it.
She couldn't, and I think honestly, she was jealous of me. I'm just saying because I was just having a good time.
I would be. Like
I was having a great time.
You were not having enough fun at the party.
Having enough fun, which I was literally. Anyway, I could go back. It's just so funny because I had the vivid picture in my head of where I was, what she was referring to, like because I kept going back to that picture of like, how was I not having a good time? It was like at her bridal shower, so she was just like. I don't know why she was mad. She was just mad. She just like I maybe provoked things in her that like I had nothing to do with. Right?
You're very provoking.
Very provoking. But it's just it is just interesting circling it back that it's not always about us. It's nice to have a self-reflection, and it's not preventable all the time. But open, honest communication and really paying attention to the red flags. We're not here to wrap this up with a bow. Because life is disappointing and we will continue to be disappointed. But you brought up a good point too. Like it is hurtful and it is something that we have to process sometimes, like grief of a loss. And you're like, I do, I
very much think, is a loss.
Yeah, it's a loss. I think about the unresolved endings of the friends that I mentioned, especially the ones that stabbed me in the back from work. I'm like, I never got a resolution. I never got and I'm sorry, because I do feel very strongly they owe me a very big apology. I'll never get it. That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. But I really I really understand what you're talking about too, with like when maybe we can talk about this in another episode too, like the gaslighting. And this actually will go along with like the societal manipulation and like being told things that you're like, wait, I don't believe that. I was listening to a podcast. It's called the Pantsuit Politics podcast. It's really great about like just kind of.
I love that podcast.
Oh my God, it's therapy for me. Like in the state of the world, it's so messed up. They break it down and they process in a way that feels cathartic. And they recently talked about like the State of the Union, where so much of it was pissing on your leg and saying it's raining. And that's like the same thing as gaslighting. It's like telling you
it is.
It's like, but I don't understand why you're like so upset about this. Like you're whatever. It's making you question your judgment when you know for a fact that is not true. For a fact A, B, and C is what's happening, and they're making you question that. Like, what? Why would you think that?
Yeah.
So it's very, especially if you're vulnerable, especially if you're in a space of like really being in love with this person. Like it's super dangerous. So we'll talk about that in the future episode.
Yeah, I would just add real quick too that. Can also be toxic positivity, where it's the opposite of the gaslighting, where it's like, you're going to be so good without me. I am doing you a favor. This, you don't need me. I'm holding you back.
Yeah.
You're going to be amazing without me. And then I'm like, what? That's like pissing on your leg, telling you it's going to rain too. So it's like, there's that portion of it as well. Yeah. But I think kind of the big takeaways here is that it's important to, when you're in these moments, to protect your mental health, and to do that by separating the facts from whatever story is being told, or that the story you're creating, that they're creating, adjusting your expectations, but not your worth. I think sometimes maybe our expectations are really high, like we think this person's never going to hurt us, but the reality is people are people. We don't ever enter into a relationship with somebody thinking they're never going to hurt me. It's like, I don't go around thinking Joy's never going to hurt me. I hope that she doesn't. But I may someday later on, I could feel hurt by something, and I would hope that I would come to you and say, "Hey, that kind of hurt my feelings," or whatever. And we'd have a conversation about it. I also feel like I have a pretty good read on you. I mean, maybe later I'll be doing a podcast and be like, "Joy totally fucked me over." But I feel like I feel pretty solid on my read on you. That honestly, I feel like we're pretty chill. We don't get riled up about a lot of things. Certain things, yes. If you injure an animal, or if you're doing some crazy political bullshit, or
we're gonna get riled up.
Any of the isms, yeah, it's gonna get us riled up. But I think we're probably pretty chill. Here's my accent coming out. I sometimes get this southern accent. It's so weird, but
yeah, I totally agree. And when you were saying like, if you ever hurt me, I'd be like, I don't think I could ever hurt.
I know. I can see your eyes. And I was like, I wanted to eye roll too. Like, if you ever hurt me.
Because if I did,
my best friend Jane.
Right, totally. Yeah.
It's like my best friend Jane. We have been friends for Jesus, I don't even know how long now. I think in the late 90s, we were friends. We have been solid nonstop, and we just hang out, and we have similar beliefs and things, and we're chill, we're relaxed. Not a lot. We're both people pleasers. I know you're a people pleaser too. I think sometimes when you get people pleasers, and you just kind of, I don't know, you can just roll with it.
Roll with stuff so much easier.
And you're just kind and friendly, and yeah. But I think just protect yourself. Don't let one person determine how you feel about humanity. I sometimes am constantly having to remind myself about this lately.
That's a good one.
Because it's a lot of people are questioning how I feel about humanity. And then I think trying to regulate yourself before you go and act, because then that makes us feel bad because we didn't act or interact or say the thing in the right way the way we wanted to present it to the person, because we get hurt.
Do you know how bad that I wanted to, like when all that went down with Kaiser, do you know how bad I wanted to rail on them in a text message? And I didn't. And it was so hard because all I could think was, this is proof that's just going to give them fuel of why they did this. If I go crazy on a text message, I'm like, see, she's nutty. I'm so glad we got rid of her.
That's hard, Joy. I don't know how you did not do it, because it's so tempting.
Because they made me look like an insane person. The way they let me go,
that
the way they
is so
walked me out of
fucking
the
weird,
building.
Because you're not insane.
Well, it's like that's
so sane.
I'm so sane.
You're one of the sanest person I know.
I'm like perfect.
I'm more insane than you are, actually.
I just
I'm
remember
gonna go arm wrestle these people.
Well, it's like when like the HR person called me too and was like, because I was so afraid, and I know I'm like rehashing this again, but I just have to say it. When the HR person called me, because I was like, what's happening? Am I going to be able to get a severance now? Like, they walked me out of the building. Does this mean I don't get a severance? Like, I was so worried about like my financial stability, like what this meant. And the HR person assured me, everything's fine. But she was like, they were just really worried about like how you were handling things in the office and I was like,
you're having a fucking emotion.
I was having an emotion in mental health, for crying out loud. Like this is how the mental health department treated me.
Tell you what, mental health and management sometimes are the worst. I'm just telling you, people out there, you don't know it. You think that they got their shit together. No, they don't. They treat you like shit.
Yeah. And so
not everybody,
not everyone, right?
But
right,
it happens.
But it was just like in that moment, I had to bite my tongue. Because I wanted to rail on the HR person, be like, do you understand what they just did to me? And I couldn't even say that. I had to like bite my tongue. I had to be a nice little girl and be like, well, thank you. I'll take my money. I'm okay. Bye. Like I wanted so bad to argue my case, to be like, but it wasn't going to help anything. So then that's another part where if you're in a situation, let's say for that, where you feel muted, you can't say anything because like what you do say will be held against you in those instances. So it's just like, it is so crazy making, because you have no chance to like state your case. And because they're not going to listen, because they've already decided like this. And then the whole company's like, the whole management team was like, wow, I guess we're just going to go. Anyway, it was so messed up. But that was another part, like a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've gone over, but we love you so much. And we hope this conversation really made you feel like, okay, everyone's going to get bamboozled. We're all going to feel bamboozled.
That should be the name. We got bamboozled.
You got bamboozled, girl. And
Joy is not going to bamboozle me, though.
no,
I'm pretty confident.
I mean, it's so like just the thought of that makes me feel sick to my stomach because I'm like, I can't even. Anyway, so
To be sick.
the
It makes our listeners sick. They're like, you guys can't break up ever.
Well, it's so funny because like maybe that's the trick is if you feel sick to your stomach thinking about bamboozling a friend, then that probably means you're like in a good relationship.
Oh, yes. That's solid. That's solid.
If you don't think about that or worry about that, you might want to question your value system. Anyway. Okay. You can find us on all the social media platforms at Laugh Cry Club. Email us laughcryclub@gmail.com to send us any questions or topic ideas. And as always, we just appreciate you spending the time with us. And we will see you next week.
See ya.